Nancy, hey.
Oh, Tony.
Well, someone's merry, and I know why. How come girls are never as gay as that when I give them roses?
Tony.
Well, I've got a message for you. Someone wants to see you.
What? Who?
Well, Miss Butler, of course. She would like a word.
A word, Miss Butler? With me?
That's right. She asked who the girl was who sat alone in the box every night, and I told her, and now she wants to see you.
Oh, Tony, what on earth? What did you tell her?
Well, nothing except the truth, just that you like her. Are you going to come along or what?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joe.
And I'm Mary.
And we're Book Buds! And today, Mary is going to tell us about Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. What was this one about?
Okay, so this was a historical fiction about a lesbian woman who was living during like the Victorian England time, just prior to the 1900s. So she first is growing up in like a little oyster community, and she's like shucking oysters with her family and living like a very simple life. Okay. And so the scene that we did, you see she's going to the theater and she's discovered Kitty Butler on stage. And Kitty Butler, she does a routine where she dresses like a man and she does some songs and she dances, and Nancy, the main character, has these feelings inside that she has never had when gazing on anyone else before in her life. Okay. And so during this period of time, they called lesbians, they called them toms. Okay. And she didn't even really have words for that yet. She didn't really like know anybody that had these thoughts like her or anything like that. So she felt very like alone and unique in her experience. But she became infatuated with Kitty Butler, and she's like going all the time to the theater to watch her. Yeah. She went like every single day for weeks. Okay. And then the scene is when somebody's like, hey, she wants to talk to you. So she's like, oh my God.
So she was a little groupie.
Yes.
Yeah. Massively.
And Kitty Butler wasn't even like the headlining person for the show or anything. So she was kind of surprised that this person was here for her. So she was very flattered. And they develop a relationship that's just, on the surface, like friendly and whatnot. But then Kitty gets this deal and she's going to be leaving to go to London, so the big city, and she has now developed like a friendship bond with Nancy, and she wants her to come along and be her dresser, so the person to help her change costumes and whatnot during the show.
That's a good role.
Yeah, I think she enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'd say.
So she was very descriptive of like her experience, Nancy's internal experience of like helping her change and all of that, like losing her breath and her heart beating and all of that. Yeah. So a spoiler, like it's not really a spoiler, I think it's in the description, that they do develop a relationship. But this is only part one of the book. There's 3 parts. Oh. Okay? So the first part is all about their relationship. Okay? And I don't want to say too much to spoil it, but it's going to be spoiled because this other 2 parts are not about their relationship. So clearly, like, something happens and she moves in another direction. So just to give you guys an idea of what to expect with this book, it's really like an epic, like, coming-of-age story where it goes across, like, a lot of different experiences that Nancy has in her lifetime. Learning about herself as, like, a tom.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. This Tom, is this acceptable in the community, or it was like a slur?
It was like you would gasp if anybody said it out loud, kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And if it was known that women were into women, they might be sent to like a reformatory, which I think was almost like an institution of some sort, maybe like a jail or a psych hospital or something like that. It wasn't guaranteed that they'd be sent away, but that could happen. So it was like things were really kept hushed up, and it wasn't accepted in her family or anything like that. Okay. But it's also not really, she's just learning about it for herself too, and trying to accept it herself, and the people that she's with have different levels of comfort with it as well. Okay. So part 1, we move to part 2. Part 2, she becomes like a sex slave to this millionaire, and she's selling herself on the street. Prior to that, lots of very risque kind of behavior that's happening in that second part. There's various, so like this is not a read for kids, okay? There's various sex toys and things like that in this portion of the book. But it was sad because she's taking like she's not emotionally in a real happy place in her own life because of all these different things that she's engaged in, you know?
Okay.
It's not like really loving experience, but she doesn't care about herself enough to want that loving experience, I think, you know?
Is she accepting of herself?
Yes, she like fully embraces her Tomness, and she dresses like a man, and tries to find ways to fit it into her daily living. So she really much is living the life that she wants to live.
Okay.
But I think kind of like almost like she's doing it for other people more than she does it for herself too, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Especially during part 2. She's very much living for others in part 2 than living for herself. And I found myself a little frustrated with the character because I felt like she had the financial means that she walked away from to certainly do more for herself, and she didn't. So I was disappointed in the main character and some of the choices that she made there. And then part 3 moves into a different relationship that has more to do with like the political movement for rights for women and things like that. Okay. And it has a happily ever after ending with lots of explicit, not lots, but some explicit scenes in the bedroom.
Okay.
Just as a heads up for those of you that may or may not want to read that. But it was a really like grand story about her life at that time.
So how'd you like it, Mary?
Okay, so now I'm going to speak more freely with spoilers and how did I really like it.
Yeah.
I read this because I wanted to read something that had 2 women as the main like romantic interest for the storyline, because I'd only ever read anything that had 2 men or a man and a woman, but I hadn't read something that was about 2 women. I had a different expectation going in, guys.
Okay.
Because you know, when I'm like interested in a romantic story, like I want people to be happy and together and all of this. Right. I don't want all this historical fiction. Blah. Okay, I am not a historical fiction reader, so I should have read the description more and realized that it was not going to be a Mary book, because it was sad, and I was not happy about that. I wanted to like, you know, be like, ooh, they like each other.
That didn't happen.
No. So in this first part, when she's infatuated with this person on the stage, they have a beautiful relationship that's starting, but Kitty is all like, oh, we can't let the public know anything about this. Like, you can't tell your friends, your family. This is to be secret. Secret.
1800s. You can't be all out and proud.
Right. So Kitty like really squashes that for her. And then the end of that relationship, I was really upset about, because I'm thinking like this is going to be the relationship for the full story. I'm invested in it. Like, I start to love Kitty and Nancy together and like really want them to make it. And no, they frickin' break up, and she goes and she marries a man and wants to have a baby to like look good for the public. I was not okay with that. That's not the way I wanted the book to go.
So that was just an intro into that world.
Yeah.
And then so we never saw Kitty again.
Well, Kitty like circles back at the end, but like not in a way that's satisfactory or anything like that. Like, Mary wants her to be with Kitty in the end because that's where it started, and I'm very shallow. All the levels of this historical fiction, I did not appreciate. But those of you that love historical fiction are going to love this book. I can appreciate that it was a really great book. Okay. It's just not a Mary book. So then when this next relationship that she goes on to, where she's like the sex slave to this millionaire, she's such like a pawn for this woman that she's just like an item. So like, she's lost her personality. She's just like a physical being, a physical object, and that's all well and good if that was the story, but that was just like the middle section, you know. So it was like these different chunks of Nancy's life, and I get that's why we're going through like all this like coming of age stuff and whatnot. Yeah. But I wanted the story to be, I could have read 3 separate stories and I probably would have liked them, you know, but putting them all together in one, I didn't like that. I wanted all the happy, like all together in one thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you're helping our viewers out. We can hear you filtering it through your Mary lens, and people are going to take with it what they will. And so people who like historical fiction will love it. Absolutely. Because it was a good book, you're saying. It was, and I don't regret that I read it. It was a wonderful book. It was really well written and everything. It's just not the typical like relaxing, fun, happy, carefree book that I would normally read. Yeah.
And then the end, so she's with this other girl in the end, and like she gets the, you know, the nice relationship with a girl that's not ashamed of being a tom with her.
Okay.
And like they kiss in public and whatnot. But they end up saying, like, at the very end, the I love yous, and it's this happily ever after. But I didn't feel passionately about this girl, you know?
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
you just
no,
met her.
my heart is still set on the first one.
Yeah.
And even in the book, she's like having a hard time getting over Kitty. And this girl that she now is with, her name's Florence, she's having a hard time getting over a girl that she was with that passed away. And I'm like, so they aren't meant to be together. They're both pining over other people. Like, they should have those other people in the merry happily ever after.
You wanted happiness for all.
I know. So they did come together and say, like, the I love yous, but, like, I didn't feel it in my soul. So I wasn't, like, swooning for them. And that's what I want in a Mary Read. I want to swoon for them, with them, you know, be happy.
They'll grow into their relationship. They'll be all right.
They will. I do think they'll be all right, and they'll have that real true happiness. But yeah, that's how I felt about it.
Okay, well, I love your honesty. And I really give you credit for reading these types of books that are really not in your wheelhouse.
Yes.
You know, you just go for it. I am so much more like, no, I'm not going to read it because I don't like it. You're very adventurous.
Yes, thank you.
I'm like, no, I'm not reading that.
Yeah, I had to give it a try. Did you guys like the flower I made? I whipped this up for the scene.
You sure did in like 10 minutes.
Real quick.
We need a prop, Mary can make it.
That's right. So have you guys read this book? It's been out forever. I didn't realize it came out before 2000. It came out in 1998.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it was her debut novel. She's had others as well. So I've heard that other people like some of her other books better. Oh. So let us know if you've read the author, if you've read this book, what you think. We'd be curious to know.
Yeah, and if you're enjoying Book Buds, give us a thumbs up.
And share us with your friends.
And subscribe to our channel, Book Buds!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.
What for? Oh, Tony, what on... I already said, what did you tell her? Did I say that before?
Yes. Just the truth, of course. I know my lines.
Miss Butler with me?
Yep. Tony.
We're Miss Butler there. Okay, I'm sorry.
You gonna come along or what?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you do this very well. This is like, you know, you're meeting the Violent Femmes or something.
I know. Mm-hmm.
Or Chris Hemsworth.